Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special GIC presentation today here on GIC TV. My name is Dr. Bernard Alvarez, and I am the Empowerment Director for the Global Illumination Council. Over the last several months, we have had a dear friend of ours, Miriam Delicado, has spent some time over in the Hopi Reservation advocating and helping them to restore their water rights, for lack of a better term, and she'll correct me when she comes on. But for those of you that don't know, the Hopi Nation is facing the loss of their water rights as well as the Navajo. And with us today, we have Miriam Delicado to explain to us generally why this is so important. Why is this so important to the Hopi people themselves that they have come out publicly to speak to the world on this issue, something that has never been done before by the traditional Hopi elders. So sit back. We have 60 minutes to spend some very precious time with a very dear friend of ours, Miriam Delicado. And let me bring her in. Let's welcome Miriam. Hello, Miriam. How are you today?
I'm good, Bernard. Thank you so much. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I am looking forward to the next hour to talk about some really serious issues that we're having, not just in Hopi, but around the planet right now. And that's going to be talking about water and what that means. So hopefully we're going to have a good discussion, and some people will call in or chats some questions to us. Not that I'm an expert on water, but I'm definitely a human being living life here and concerned about the next step for our existence. So thanks for having me.
Now, Miriam, let me ask you a question. You recently were in Hopi. When you say Hopi, what does that mean? Is that the Hopi reservation, or is that just a region of Arizona that's considered Hopi? What does that exactly mean?
Well, by today's standards, what we're talking about is an area that is a reservation, an quote, Indian reservation within the United States, and that's located in Arizona. The land of the Hopi is actually a very vast area, meaning the migratory patterns of the Hopi people themselves is a very vast and thousands of years of history as far as where their lands are. Or have been in the past as well. But right now we're talking about Hopi being the land upon which the Hopi people live, and that is located in northern Arizona.
Okay, and are there several tribes, or are they all considered one particular tribe? Or are there, like in the United States, are different states that fall under the umbrella of Hopi, so to speak?
No, the Hopi are very unique people, and they are simply in Arizona in that one area. That's where their ancestral lands are, that they've been there for close to 1,000 years. They do have brothers that are, brothers and sisters, let's say, that surround the area, such as the other Pueblo people, and a lot of those reside in the New Mexico area. The Zuni being one of them, that are very closely related to the Hopi people as well. The Diné people are the Navajo. Diné being the traditional name of the people there, the Diné. And all traditional people are linked. But when we get into the fine, ceremonial structures, they're very unique in themselves, and so you can easily say that a lot of the ceremonies that they do in that particular region, in the Four Corners region, is still unique, and the Zunis being the closest ones to that.
Right, I understand now. So, before we get into the water issue, because I feel this is important for us to help understand or help our watchers and our listeners understand the importance of the Hopi people, the importance of their traditions, the importance of the prophecies that they speak of, And why is this so important for the planet right now to understand their message about water? And why is it so important for humanity to pay attention to what the Hopi are saying right now?
Well, I mean, it's not just the Hopi. I'll say that to begin with. It's not just the Hopi. It's indigenous people around the planet right now have been talking about different issues that they've been facing that are on a global, that have global consequences. For example, creating dams like they are in South America, blocking rivers, diverting rivers to the point where they're diverted so much that the rivers themselves are drying up. um, the snow-capped mountains where there used to be glacial, like huge, massive glaciers, are drying up as well. So there's a global issue that's taking place, and it's not just in Hopi, and it's not just with the indigenous, but it's around the world. Why it's important for, quote, indigenous people in general for us to listen to what they're talking about is because they really have a wonderful, beautiful, sacred way of viewing the natural balance of the world itself. And of course, the scientific community has only recently been catching up with the indigenous knowledge. And this is proven fact. If a person were to go in and educate themselves um, on indigenous and ancient cultures, and then look at current science, it's going to tell you very, very, very clearly that they have vast knowledge that we in the westernized world or the industrial world are only beginning to understand. So that's why when they start telling us and giving us warnings and saying we have to stop this, we have to do it right now, that's why it's important to listen. There are certain cultures on the planet, indigenous cultures, that have managed to maintain what I term as the original sacred knowledge. And the original sacred knowledge is literally something where it is clear that the it's clear that they have this understanding. And when they're doing this, when they're doing this spiritual work of holding the balance, and they come forward for the first time, such as the Hopi, it's very, very, very challenging to not listen to them, because in their original instructions in a lot of these ancient cultures, they knew, they sort of had prophesized that different events would be taking place on the planet. And now those things are happening. The earthquakes, the volcanoes, the solar flares, the rivers changing course, the oceans dying. The prophecies of the indigenous people continue to come forward and continue to be proven as being very accurate. With the Hopi, they have an exceptionally high accuracy rate with their prophecies themselves. And although throughout history, in the last 100 years, there have been certain Hopis that have come forward and spoken, what makes this significant is that the leaders that are speaking now are coming from what they call the mother village. And this means that it is the village from where they first migrated, and they came together, and they planted themselves in this village of Shamopavi. And when they planted themselves in the village of Shamopavi, it was from there that people would leave and then begin other villages. So this being the mother village, today what makes it unique is that it's the last remaining village to do the full ceremonial cycle. But one has to be very respectful and honoring, because all of the other villages that still do the ceremonies and still hold the dances and hold that energy are all participating in one form or another with the mother village. So there's still traditional work where an individual from another village may be coming to support. And there's always that mutual support of all of the traditional work that they do. So it's not as though they're separated, and we need to use caution in making it appear that this particular village is superior in some way. It just means that they are still able, through support from all around them, able to continue the full ceremonial cycle. These men who have passed from generation to generation the ancient knowledge and the sacred knowledge, the knowledge that was meant to be kept private, to protect it, to honor it, to hold sacred. These men, through the generations, have never, ever, ever spoken from this mother village. And so when the water issue, when they were faced with this water issue recently, and they were asked, you know, what was going to happen, and they started to talk about it, they determined very, very quickly that this was part of their prophecies, where they were told through their uncles being the ones that teach them that sacred knowledge, and their elders, that this day would be coming. The danger, we'll talk about in a few minutes.
You explained a lot for me because I had a lot of questions pertaining to the mother village. I didn't quite understand that myself, so thank you for educating myself and the viewers on that. With that being said, you've recently spent quite a bit of time down there, and you've been in contact with several of the tribal leaders, the tribal elders from the mother village, and it was quite an adventure, I'm sure, and very beautiful and very spiritually exciting and empowering. But can you tell us a little bit, and for those of our friends that are watching right now, Miriam has put out several videos already of her time in the Hopi, on the Hopi land. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful videos with beautiful talks. And but from your perspective, as someone who has been there, as someone who is in contact personally, physically, and emotionally, and spiritually, a connection, I'm sure. What is it like with what does that mean that to you to be there and to connect with these people and be with this wonderful be in this wonderful environment? Can you kind of give us a I guess an energetic picture of what it's like to be there with them?
It is, well, I've maintained, I've been, you know, I've been going to Hopi for a really long time. And through that connection, slowly been building and building over the years. People often ask me, how did you get where you are in Hopi? How did that happen? How did you get to be able to talk to these powerful traditional people? And I can necessarily even answer that question, other than to say following my own spirit. And that doesn't mean following what I want, because there are times when I've traveled to Hopi that I didn't want to go, if you can believe that.
I understand.
Because it's challenging there. It's deeply challenging. When I go to Hopi, every time I go, I'm driving, you know, in a car, and because that's really the only way to get there. Driving in a car, and I get closer to Hopi, and my breath gets taken away. It's like I just very gently breathe it in. It's like walking through to me, it's like walking through into another world, literally. I feel it, I see it, I sense it, I breathe it in as I enter into this land. And everything's changed when I get there. Everything immediately is different for me. I tend to be very, very, very aware of the nature that is around me. Every rock, every color, every tree, every grain of sand that's there, because it is primarily nature that's there. And so spiritually, that's part of what it's like for me. And when I sit, I can hear the earth. It's sort of like this, you know. And there's a crystal bowl. I don't know which one it is. But there's a crystal bowl that I heard once that was so close to the sound of the earth. It was just incredible. So that's the experience for me, sort of spiritually, with the earth itself. And then with the people, being a white woman from Canada, it's extremely challenging. Very challenging. Because most traditional communities are trying to do everything that they can to maintain themselves, to maintain their ceremonies and their culture, their arts, their way of life. And having outsiders come in can sometimes cause conflict, or it can cause miscommunications or misunderstandings that are so subtle that one might not even aware that they've just been extremely disrespectful to someone or to something. And Hopi is very, 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 very complex. And so I'm not sure how I can explain how I connect with the people there, other than to say that I believe that I understand them to a degree. And I've watched how other people who have come there really have this arrogant attitude about how they somehow are superior. Even other traditional people sometimes can believe that because they're so traditional that they get it, that they understand. And when you walk into Hopi, I've said to many people, when you go to Hopi, you have to leave every single thing that you think at the door. And you have to walk in with an open mind and a clean slate. Because whatever you think is going to work there is not going to work. We were recently there with some people that were filming, and I had this conversation with my dear friend, and we were kind of discussing this. And it's the same thing. I mean, we leave everything at the door, and he was just phenomenal, and he did that. And then because of that, he was able to have beautiful experiences with one of the elders there. And it's challenging being sort of involved in personal matters, let's say, of anyone, let alone of an ancient people. And I always have to remind myself I'm only there as a guest. I'm not there as anything else, because to believe that is arrogant. So even though I have this connection with some of the people there and with these, I mean, I don't want to overextend my position with the people there in any way.
That makes sense, Miriam. As a matter of fact, it's let me adjust my camera here a little bit. I can't help but think of that term, that saying that people say, familiarity breeds contempt. So it's always like being to have reverence just for your every moment, every connection, every interaction with these people. Is that kind of what you're saying there? While you're there, it's always a place of reverence. That's a very good term.
It's a place of humility.
Thank you. That's better.
It's a place of humility. Not that I have not had my moments, my own personal moments in Hopi. Believe me, I've had, I'm a human being, and I've had my challenges of being there in different situations. But I constantly am reminding myself to be humble because the people in Hopi are humble. And it's so fascinating to have the experience of, I've gone to some of their kachina dances, for example, the ceremonies that they have, and just an incredible experience. And standing at the back and watching the ceremonies, and as soon as you go to one of these, you're participating in it. As soon as you show up, you're participating in it. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. But I always go to Hopi knowing that I have to have humility and that I have to leave my own thoughts at the door often. For example, I will literally see people go in and they'll want to talk. If you do that with a Hopi, they're not going to tell you anything. And when they pause, it doesn't mean it's a conversation. They're thinking about what they're going to say next.
Right.
So I can't tell you how many times I've sat with them, and I've sat at a table for literally an hour, 2 hours, sometimes, an hour or two, and just sat without saying a single word. And not even anyone speaking English, but them speaking Hopi. And there's no anxiety, there's no upset, it's just, that's the way that it is. And so it's a beautiful experience to have that, but for a lot of people it would be very challenging. And I know it because I've seen it time and time again with people.
People get very excited to be in their presence. It's almost as if like you're in the presence of a celebrity or something, perhaps, And
Yeah.
A lot of times when people are in that situation, they start just rolling. The filter's gone. They get all excited, and people just start talking and think they know stuff that they don't. And
Yes.
it sounds like it's a good opportunity to be, as you said, humble and to listen. And with that, Miriam, I have a question to ask you, and I don't know if there is an answer to this, but with the research that I've done, thanks to you piquing my interest of the Hopi people, and of course being in the time that we're in, I've done research for years, but I have never really seen or heard anything about how long have the Hopi people been in Arizona. Most websites, most researchers will say time, I forgot, immemorable or right, right. Is there any archaeological, perhaps any archaeological evidence to kind of date how long these wonderful people have been here on our continent?
On the continent, I don't
Okay.
know the continent, the dates of the continent. I'm sure that they know.
Right, right.
I know that they know. But the archaeologists have said that it's 1,000 years that they've been living in the one location. But that doesn't mean that that's how long they've been living in that area, in the Four Corners area. They've been there much longer than that in the Four Corners area. And so it's approximately 1,000 years that they've lived in that same village, for example.
Right.
And, in saying that, getting back to this water issue as an example of this, they've seen the land, they know what it's, they watch the waves of, literally the waves of changes within their own environment, their own natural environment, and what that has caused to their planting seasons and to their ceremonies, even with sacred water sites and things like that. So they've seen a great change, and they attribute that to not only the natural course of nature itself, but they also attribute it to the actions of humanity. And it's really important for them to get this message to the world that we are in a crisis with the water. Because for the Hopi, they have their own voice and their own message that they're bringing forward. And we have a video clip that we finally just finished today, and it'll be on traditionalhopi.org website probably by tonight. And I tried to do it last night, and it hit a bit of a glitch with YouTube. So it'll be up by hopefully tonight on traditionalhopi.org. And it's a message on behalf of these leaders in Shamopavi village about the water issue. And it's a clip of that. And then there's interviews that they've started to put out as well to talk to the world and to say, yes, this is what's happening. We need to pay attention now. We need to really look at this. And when it comes to how long they've been in that area, it does have an effect on their viewpoint. Because I'm over 40 now. I'm 46. That's I'm 46 years old today. So that's my viewpoint. 46 years.
Is today your birthday?
I beg your pardon?
Did you say you're 46 today? Is today your birthday?
No.
Oh, okay.
At this moment, I'm 46.
Yes, yeah, okay.
And so that's my viewpoint. They have a viewpoint that's thousands of years old. So what is the value in listening to what they have to say? Well, the value is they have this viewpoint. They have this knowledge. They have scientific knowledge that the scientists themselves are only just beginning to tap into.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the water issue, it is a global issue, because once clean water is just, once it's done, it's done. Then we have to clean it. And when we clean it, we often use chemicals in order to clean it.
Unfortunately.
And there's all of these technologies that are starting to be created, but really, is it realistic for the entire planet? No. So we have to take care of our waterways. And right now, the Hopi are facing a critical issue whereby the Senate, Senator Kyle, is putting a bill to the Senate floor for a vote, and it's Senate Bill 2109, and in it takes away Hopi's Aboriginal right to water. That language is actually in this bill.
Oh my! And thank you. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm very very happy that we're starting to discuss this now, because a lot of people. I have done some research, and I have seen a lot of give and take as far as, or I should say, going back and forth as far as who gave them the Aboriginal rights. Was it during the Louisiana Purchase? Was it, how did the United States government give them these rights? And, the reality of it is, for me, is that they were there first, and we have to respect that. But can you tell us a little bit more? And like you said, you were just explaining a little bit about the bill itself. They're talking about Aboriginal rights to water. Now, what are Aboriginal rights to water, to help everybody understand?
Okay, I am not in any way an attorney.
Right.
And I can't give really specific details.
What have you gotten out of it?
I can only give you a very broad overview on this. And what I can say is that throughout history of the United States coming into formation, there has been different rights that have been given to, quote, indigenous people or tribal people living on the lands. One of them is Aboriginal rights. And there is Aboriginal rights to water, and I'm not sure to all of the things, but there is a law. It's basically a law was created to say that they had Aboriginal rights to certain things. And, for example, there's another tribe in Montana, I think the Flathead, I just read, the Flathead tribe is also going through another bill that's looks similar, and they're looking at the Aboriginal rights to them to fish in that river. And it means that's what you need to survive. That's what you have a right to. So that's a really basic right to life. Okay, they lived there. Think about this. I'm not an American. I'm from Canada, so I apologize. What year was the United States formed?
1776.
In 1776. 17, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 400 years, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, about 400 years. The Hopi have been here probably 3 times as long, if not more. 4 times
And
as
actually,
long.
it's less than 300. I just did the math.
It's less than 300 years.
Less than 300. I remember 1976 was the bicentennial, so maybe 230 years, maybe.
Right.
And they've been there 1,000 years, like you said.
They've been there 1,000 years. So now all of a sudden they have Senator Kyle walking in and others, and they're saying, okay, we're going to take away your Aboriginal right to water, okay? And we're going to give it to the corporation over here, all right? And here's what we're going to do. So this is where I get really kind of a bit crazy. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give it to, we have the right then to do whatever we want with the water. We can sell it to people in the South. We can sell it to people on the West Coast that need it. We can sell it to here. But here's the thing. They're setting up another uranium mining project in the heart of the Grand Canyon, right where one of the most sacred points of the Hopi people exists. They're going to start uranium mining. It's close to there. And the water will probably go to the mining corporations for that. I'm not sure. It's only speculation. But what I do know is that from what I've been told and what I've been educated on, from my understanding, is that the other Peabody coal, from what I understand, Peabody coal is given a 22-year extended lease to 2044, that all, from what I understand, that they also have all what they have is all legal lawsuits that are against Peabody coal from the Navajo and the Hopi have to be dropped, and that no further litigation against the Peabody Coal Company can come in the future. And that's part of this bill. So they're lucky, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Hopi get their Aboriginal rights to water taken away, which means that if their people are, that they will have to ask the government to use the water. And the government will decide what they need.
Right.
They will have their Aboriginal rights taken away. Peabody Coal gets extended lease. This is private corporations.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee. They're talking about this. This gets really crazy. On one end of Hopi, they have in the 50s, I think it must have been the 50s and 60s. I'm not sure of the dates. Again, it's very generalized information I can give. But in the western part of Hopi, they did uranium mining, and they had a dumping ground. They had a dump. And that dump was, from the uranium mining, was dumped right in this one spot. Well, what happened is now the uranium is seeped into one of the waterways, and it contaminated the water on the western side, which means that the water that the Navajo and the Hopi are drinking are contaminated with uranium.
Oh, jeez. To clarify something, Miriam, and just so people understand, including myself, when we say their water source, now, how do the Hopi get their water right now? And clarify me if I'm wrong. They're not a part of the national grid, are they? Or is it all a part of the grid, or some of it part of the grid, or are they really just living off wells and going to the river and getting their water, et cetera, et cetera?
Some of it's living off grid. Some of it's living on the grid, some of it's living off the grid. So it depends on where they are.
Right.
They also tap into aquifers that are underneath the earth that are all over in that region. And so the thing is, the reason I wanted to bring up this uranium is because the United States government had an obligation to clean it up. And they've never, ever, ever done it. And now what they're doing is they're saying, and I'm going to reiterate to the Hopi specifically, because that's who I've been speaking with, they're going to take away their Aboriginal right to water. They're going to give it into the hands of corporations with no checks and balances to ensure that they're not repolluting their land or destroying the water in any way. The Hopi people would then have to ask for permissions to the United States government to use the water in the future. On top of that, the uranium mining that they have from the past, the government right now, Senator Kyle and Senator McCain from Arizona are saying, oh, we're going to clean this water up. We're going to get them fresh water. See, this deal that we're giving them is really great because the people are going to be able to use this water. But the fact is that the United States government had an obligation to clean up that uranium and get them clean water, and they never have. So they're saying, we're going to give you all of this money for your water, and then you're going to have to take all of that money to get yourself clean water. And there's the amount of money that they're trying to pass off. They're saying the project in order to do this would take 20 years. The amount of money that they're putting towards this, think of any big contract in government or even in private corporations that sticks within a budget, especially extended 20 years into the future. There's no way that the amount that they're giving them is going to even allow for them to have clean water in the future. So they're literally trying to take this water and give it out to people that are irresponsible with it. Now, going back to the Hopi elders and the leaders that are there, the reason that they've decided to come forward, because these men have never spoken to the public from a unified group like this. They've never spoken to the public like this, from this village, from the mother village. And that's what this message, that's what these messages are. And that's why they're coming forward. Because they say that this is the prophecies of their people. And that if we, as a people, as a human being, you're a human being, I'm a human being, anywhere in the world, that if we are not responsible with our water, no matter where we are, that the whole world is going to dry up. So although they have an issue in Hopi that they're facing, and they're asking people to support them by signing the Avaz petition that we just started to stop Senate Bill 2109, and to go to the traditionalhopi.org website, the issue and why they're coming forward and asking for support on all fronts is to be able to stop the chaos that we are sending ourselves into, because that's what their prophecy said. If they come to us and take our water, this is what's going to happen to the rest of the world. So we can't let that happen.
Very symbolic to the entire planet.
Right.
Especially when you're dealing with the prophecies.
Well, as an as a person who's been, privileged enough to be in this community for my limited moments, let's say, although I've been there a lot. I've been there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months out of the year for the last few years. Even that is nothing in comparison to the life of a Hopi. But what I do know is that as a result of being in this community, I've been able to witness how whatever happens in Hopi happens in the rest of the world.
Right.
And it literally starts in Hopi. Things start to come out, and then they'll go out into the rest of the world. And I just watch, and I'm like, okay, this is going to happen next. This is going to happen next. And they start to happen. So it makes me nervous as a person who's witnessed the truths the absolute truths that are coming from these people in their traditional spiritual work. And they're really calling on all people, all nations, all races to stand together and protect life, to protect water. And this is about the buying and selling of life itself, which is water.
It certainly is. Miriam, where is the Hopi water source mainly? Is it all under the reservation, or is it rivers? Is it lakes? When we're saying that the United States wants to buy the Hopi water rights, where exactly is this water that we're talking about? Where is it coming
Everything.
from?
Everything.
Just everything on their reservation?
Everything.
Above, below, underneath, flowing through?
Yes.
Wow. So they want 100% control of a natural resource.
Right.
It's very sad to see the to see things come to this. I mean, we see it happening all over the world all the time. We see, I mean, we're all being swindled, as we all know, in one form or another by the powers that be, and this is why we're at the place that we are now as a planet. But with this happening to what I consider one of the most sacred people on the planet, this really brings it to a pinnacle of sorts of, okay, now we're at the turning point. We're definitely at the turning point. This is the Hopi. You know, you're messing with the Hopi, not to sound too slang, but that's the reality of it is. I mean, if, and this is not to be disrespectful to any other indigenous tribes at all, but I will say that for me, the Hopi have always been very much a symbol of spiritual life on this continent. You know, they've just been a very, very much symbol of tradition, indigenous culture, and traditional ritual, traditional prophecy, and all of the above. And for me, they're one of the few that never really sold out, you know, and that might be disrespectful to some people, but I don't see Hopi casinos all over the place. You know, it seems that they've done their best to stick to tradition and really carrying that thread of tradition through the centuries, and we're talking centuries, a millennia. This is 1,000 years, is a millennia. So to really hold on to that is really something to be respected and be in awe of. So when we see the government saying, okay, now it's your turn, we're taking your water now. You know, you didn't assimilate, you didn't become capitalists or whatnot, well, we're going to capitalize off you, you know. And I'm not saying that, you know, as a whole, maybe there's not one or two that are capitalists, but the reality of it is that as a whole, though, you know, I would think symbolically speaking, that really is a very heart-wrenching issue for those of us in the spiritual community to see something like this happen to those that we call the Hopi. And how have you spoken to? And I know you're in contact with several other indigenous tribes around the planet. Have any of the other tribes spoken up about the Hopi water issue, or shown concern or anything, or is it just too early to tell?
It's just too early to tell. There's been a little bit of, but I mean, they haven't, shouted from the rooftops yet. So we'll see how things progress. I know that there's many issues of water with indigenous tribes right now, all over North America. So there's obviously some movement that's going on. They've have a push to, finalize these water deals. They've got to push to finalize these water deals on right now. So it's very interesting because once I started to look at it a little bit more closely from that perspective, that's what I found is that they're pushing different tribes to finalize these water deals that they've been working on for a really long time. And I mean, they've actually said in government, and I can't remember who quoted this, but it was something like, yeah, we need to get this done now before it gets too expensive. Well, what's the expense? Is the expense the money? Or is the expense the human life that we're going to be causing suffering to in the future? That's the expense as far as I'm concerned. So we need to have thought about how we're using the water and what we're doing with it. And I cannot speak for the Hopi, but I can imagine that that is what they that is the focus that they have, is what is being done with the water. They don't want to deny anyone water, but they're saying what's going to happen to it. What's going to happen to our people when the future comes? Instead of having, the Hopi people choose to still live in rock homes. It's quite beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. They choose to plant corn in the dry sand of the Arizona deserts. They choose to do ceremonies every single month that go on take 3 weeks of preparation and work for those 3 weeks out of every single month. They choose to participate in a community every single month. So when we're talking about why we should listen to people that have lived in the same place for over 1,000 years, well before anyone from the United States government came in, we have a responsibility, not to the Hopi. No. We don't have a responsibility to Hopi. We don't have a responsibility to the United States government. We don't have a responsibility to any particular group. We have a responsibility to humanity. To
Absolutely.
humanity. And that's the issue that's why I choose to be involved, is because this is about human life and the future of human life. And so it's a very, very big issue. And traditionalhopi.org is where they've started to put some messages out. And we've got an interview on there. I have to get the link on for them for the interview that one of the elders did, and there's more to come on that, actually. So it's coming together.
It certainly is. I got to preview a little bit of it, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I got to listen to the wonderful interview, and I forgot the gentleman's name, the elder. Can you remind me?
His name is Radford.
Radford, correct. That's right. And it really it just says something to you when you're watching it and you're listening to the words that, here is probably someone who's not used to speaking to the public or being in front of a camera or whatnot, and they're just speaking from the heart, and you can sense that. You can feel the urgency just from the heart of the words, if that makes sense. Miriam, we've got about 10 minutes left, but I wanted to pick up where are the Hopi now? Where is this process right now? Is the bill is on the floor and they're waiting to vote on it? Is that what's happening right now?
Wow, that's a very, very complicated. See, everything in Hopi is complicated. In order to understand an issue, you'd have to actually research it and study it in order to understand it fully, to really, truly understand what's going on. This issue seems to be no different. There is all sorts of things in the news that are the news articles that you could find on this issue that say that the Hopi want it, that the Hopi Tribal Council, meaning the government end of the tribe, voted on it and said yes to it, which is not truthful at all. It's just not. It's not true. There are different reports that say that the people in Hopi don't want it. There are reports saying that they've squashed it because the Navajo and the Hopi rejected the settlement agreement, and that Senator Kyle keeps saying, if they don't want it, we're not going to do it, if they don't want it. But then when the people all come forward, which I was witness to personally, in person, to see that all of these traditional, high traditional leaders from all these different villages, the governors, the representatives, the traditional leaders themselves came forward and said to the council, no, we're not going to do it. We don't want it. They voted it down. They said, no, we're not going to accept this settlement. Then all of a sudden the chairman in Hopi said, yeah, that's nice. Let's just keep going.
Oh, boy.
So they have a serious issue.
So there's politics within the politics within the politics.
Within the politics, within the politics. But the thing is that, in my opinion, this man, this Shingoitiwa, is acting on his own, and he's acting with very few people standing behind him.
I see.
And this is my view and my understanding, and from talking to people, the number of people that are supporting it are simply not educated on what's being taken from them, because in Hopi they don't have, some of them don't even have telephones. Some of them don't have, most of them, most Hopis do not have the internet, so they don't have that. Many of them do not have televisions, they don't watch the news. So there's very limited understanding of this bill itself, and they need to be told what it entails in order for them to make an educated decision. And when the council, the tribal council of Hopi was asked, how many of you here on the council, they pointed and they said, how many of you can actually explain this bill? Only 3 people lifted their hands.
Wow.
And yet they're going to vote on the future of their people without even understanding. I think it was only 3 that lifted their hands. For the entire rest of their people, it's crazy. So there's conflicting information that's out there. The bottom line is that the Navajo are apparently going through a very similar process from what I understand. And it's even complicated for me, and I'm in the heart of it. What I can say is that it's still on the Senate floor. We still need to get it stopped on the Senate floor. If nothing else, we need to focus on that and be ready to stop it there. So we're asking people to sign the Avaz petition. If you put in Avaz, A-V-A-A-Z, and then Hopi, it will pop up. And it's also on the Traditional Hopi website. So
and we posted quite a bit.
It's still moving forward. And right now, I think that it's gone to the first committee, and it hasn't gone to the second committee yet. And we also have a link under the Take Action, the Take Action link that we have on the website. And there's a place there that you can look and go and see where the progress is in the House and in the Senate. Not where it's happening in Hopi. And what I can say in this particular subject is be careful what you believe, because the media is not being accurate or truthful in what it is that they're reporting as far as agreements that have been made. Hopi hasn't agreed to anything yet.
Right.
And they're breaking their own law. He's breaking his own law, from what I understand, in the chairman there, in moving forward and proceeding. He's breaking his own law.
Unbelievable. Not unbelievable, unfortunately. We're living in crazy times, or how shall I say, this is a part of the shift. And a lot of stuff is coming to the surface that is going to surprise us, a lot of behavior and whatnot. As far as the author of the bill, am I mistaken to say that it was McCain, Senator McCain from Arizona, that was one of the authors of the bill?
You might know. Yeah, I don't know who authored
I believe in speaking. I believe Senator McCain is involved in some way, as far as, well, he has to be. He's a senator from Arizona.
He is. He's been working on this, negotiating this, and working on it for years.
And for those of you that don't remember, McCain was the one who ran against Obama in the last election and went back to being a senator. But needless to say, it's a very convoluted tale, and you've really clarified a lot of it. You really have, but there's so much more to tell.
Well, what I wanted to say is that, which I think is also very relevant to this situation, is Hopi is a microcosm, is an actual microcosm of the rest of the world. So the fact that I think the French president, isn't it the French president that just got thrown out?
Sarkozy, yeah. They have a new socialist president now.
Right. So Hopi is a microcosm of the rest of the world. And if, I've seen this to be fact over and over and over again. So all I can say is be very careful, because the next couple of years, or the next year and a half to 2 years of politics, is going to be overwhelming to people. It's going to be overwhelming. What is going to come out? What truths are going to come out? What shocking events are going to come out? Well, I talked about this in my video when I talked about what was coming in 2012.
Yeah.
It's going to be shocking. More and more and more truths are going to start to come undone, and more rogue breaking of laws is going to be taking place. That's going to be blatant. It's not going to be hidden anymore. Things are going to start to come out. And I mean, I'm not about to say that everyone in government is bad. I don't believe that.
I don't either.
I don't believe that. And I don't believe I don't believe in going against our governments either. What I believe in is having a voice to make the changes, to make them make the changes, if that's what we need in order to keep this world in balance. So I am not a radical go out and do all of these things. And I want to make that clear before we leave here today, because we've only got another couple minutes, that this is about peaceful action to create change. So wherever you are in the world, the Hopi are calling on you to look around you, to find your waterways, and start using your voices to protect this natural element that is life itself. And so, you know, it's a real honor to be able to speak on these things, even in this limited way. Also, I'm going to speak real fast to get this in.
Yeah.
With this particular bill, with Senate Bill 2109 being put onto the Senate floor, they're actually going against, I think, 3 or 4 different laws. One of them is Aboriginal rights law, Winter's law. There's another one, Federal Reserve rights, or Federal Reserve rights, I believe it is, and also going against Supreme Court rulings in the United States of America. And I can't quote those right now. I could get that information, I think, at some point, but they go against those as well. And those state that that these decisions, some of them have already been made. So by bringing this bill to the Senate floor, it actually goes against Supreme Court rulings in the past as well in regard to the water rights, so forth and so on, for the traditional people. So it's very intricate, it's very convoluted, as they say, and nothing is really as it appears to be. It's my motto, nothing is as it appears to be. Let's continue to do our parts in our communities and come together. And thank you so much, Bernard. And I know that Yvonne was also helping out today, and I'm not sure who else, but thank you for having me.
Thank you, Miriam. It's always a pleasure.